Imagine coming home after a long day, expecting peace, only to find death waiting in the shadows. A man, armed with a hammer, hiding in your bedroom, sent by the one person you once trusted with your life. But instead of becoming a victim, you become the survivor. This is the story of Susan Walters, the woman who faced death and won. Susan Walters dedicated over 3 decades to saving lives as an emergency room nurse in Portland, Oregon. Her commitment to her patients was unwavering, even as her personal life faced turmoil. After 17 years of marriage, she separated from her husband, Michael Kuhnhausen, a man she once trusted implicitly. Little did she know, this separation would set off a chain of events that would test her resilience and will to survive. In 1988, Susan Walters, a 33-year-old emergency room nurse in Portland, Oregon, was ready to find love. With the encouragement of her mother and a friend, she placed a personal ad in the local paper, Willamette Week. The ad read, SWF, 33, overweight but not over life, seeks SM who wants more out of a relationship than just slender. Among the many responses, one stood out. A 39-year-old man named Michael Kuhnhausen replied, describing himself as someone who enjoyed nature and simple pleasures. Intrigued, Susan began a series of phone conversations with Michael, totaling over 100 hours before they met in person. She was impressed by his willingness to discuss deeper topics, noting, "I was impressed he wanted to talk about the deeper things." Their first date took place at the Crystal Springs Rhododendron Garden, where they fed ducks and tossed peanuts to squirrels. Within a year, they drove to Reno to get married, viewing marriage as life's ultimate gamble. However, the marriage soon faced challenges. Michael, who worked as a janitorial supervisor for an adult video store chain, revealed a pessimistic outlook on life, often stating, "Life is a shit sandwich, and every day you take another bite until you die." His negativity and controlling behavior, including monitoring Susan's outings and expenditures, created a growing rift between them. After 17 years together, Susan decided to separate, seeking happiness and freedom from the oppressive environment. Unbeknownst to her, this decision would set off a chain of events that would test her resilience and will to survive. On September 6, 2006, after a demanding shift at Providence Portland Medical Center, Susan returned to her southeast Portland home. The house was quiet, but an unsettling feeling lingered. She noticed a note from Michael, "Sue, haven't been sleeping. Had to get away, went to the beach." As she processed the note, an unexpected presence lurked in the shadows. Lurking inside Susan Walters' home was a man whose life had spiraled into darkness long before this night. Edward Dalton Haffey, 59 years old, had spent decades entangled in crime, addiction, and violence. Once an upper-middle-class tennis player, his life had taken a drastic turn, leading to a past filled with robbery, burglary, and drug-related offenses. His most heinous crime? Conspiring in the 1991 murder of his ex-girlfriend, Georgia Lee Dutton, whose decomposed body was later found along the Umpqua River. Convicted in 1994, Haffey served nearly a decade in prison before being released on parole in 2003. Following his release, he struggled to rebuild his life, battling a crippling cocaine addiction. In July 2004, he landed a janitorial job at Fantasy Adult Video, a store managed by none other than Michael Kuhnhausen, Susan's estranged husband. It was there that the fateful deal was struck. Michael, desperate to avoid a costly divorce, saw in Haffey the perfect tool for his deadly plan. On September 6, 2006, Haffey broke into Susan's home while she was at work, waiting for her in the shadows. He wore yellow rubber gloves, a clear indication that he planned to leave no evidence behind. His weapon of choice, a claw hammer, was gripped tightly in his hand, ready for the brutal task ahead. As Susan entered her bedroom, the ambush began. Haffey lunged at her from behind the door, swinging the hammer with full force. The first blow struck her left temple, sending shockwaves of pain through her body. But what he didn't anticipate was Susan's will to survive. She had spent decades in the ER, tending to victims of violence. Now, she was one. Bleeding and dazed, Susan faced a terrifying choice: succumb to the attack or fight with everything she had left. In a desperate struggle for her life, Susan Walters summoned every ounce of strength and training she possessed. Despite the searing pain from the hammer blow to her temple, she fought back fiercely against Edward Haffey, the intruder sent to end her life. Drawing upon her 3 decades of experience as an emergency room nurse, Susan knew the vulnerabilities of the human body. She managed to wrest the hammer from Haffey's grasp and delivered several blows to his head. But Haffey, driven by his mission, regained control of the weapon and continued his assault. Refusing to succumb, Susan employed another tactic. She bit Haffey repeatedly, aiming to leave evidence of the attack. Her determination was unwavering. In the midst of the violent struggle, she managed to maneuver behind Haffey, applying a chokehold with her left arm around his neck and her right forearm pressing against his throat. As she tightened her grip, she demanded, "Tell me who sent you here, and I'll call you an ambulance." Haffey's only response was a guttural growl. Susan maintained the chokehold until he ceased to move. Exhausted and injured, Susan released her grip, grabbed the hammer for protection, and fled to her neighbor's house to call 911. The entire confrontation had lasted approximately 14 minutes, a harrowing testament to her will to survive. Bleeding and disoriented from the violent encounter, Susan Walters knew she needed immediate assistance. She rushed to her neighbor's house, her heart pounding, and banged on the door, seeking help. The neighbor, alarmed by Susan's appearance, quickly dialed 911. In the recorded 911 call, the urgency and trauma of the situation are palpable. The neighbor relayed, "We have an intruder in the house next door. The intruder was in the bedroom with a hammer. The woman who lives there thinks she may have strangled him. He was down when she left." When the dispatcher inquired if Susan needed medical assistance, the neighbor responded, "No, she's a nurse. She says call an ambulance for the guy. He may be dead." Upon arrival, authorities confirmed that Edward Haffey was deceased. As they combed through the scene, investigators uncovered a damning piece of evidence, a note in Haffey's planner that read, "Call Mike." This discovery led them to Michael Kuhnhausen, Susan's estranged husband. The man she had once shared her life with was now implicated in orchestrating the attempt on her life. The revelation that the mastermind behind the attack was someone Susan had deeply trusted added a profound layer of betrayal to the harrowing ordeal. As investigators delved deeper into the events surrounding the attack on Susan Walters, a disturbing plot began to emerge. Michael Kuhnhausen, Susan's estranged husband, faced mounting financial pressures and the impending dissolution of their 17-year marriage. Desperate to avoid the financial fallout of a divorce and eager to claim the proceeds from Susan's life insurance policy, Michael devised a sinister plan. He approached Edward Haffey, a coworker at the adult video store he managed, offering him $50,000 to murder Susan. Haffey, enticed by the promise of easy money, agreed to the deadly proposition. In the aftermath of the failed murder attempt, law enforcement swiftly apprehended Michael Kuhnhausen. Facing overwhelming evidence, he pleaded guilty to soliciting the murder of his wife. In September 2007, he was sentenced to 10 years in prison for his role in the plot. However, Michael's time behind bars was cut short. In 2014, while still incarcerated, he succumbed to cancer, never completing his full sentence. The revelation that the orchestrator of the attack was the man Susan had once loved and trusted added a profound layer of betrayal to the harrowing ordeal. It underscored the chilling reality that danger can sometimes come from those closest to us. With Michael Kuhnhausen dead, Susan Walters could finally begin to rebuild her life, but the psychological scars remained. She had survived an attack meant to silence her forever, yet the betrayal of someone she once trusted left a wound that no prison sentence could heal. Determined to reclaim her peace, Susan channeled her trauma into advocacy, using her experience to empower other survivors of domestic violence and contract killing attempts. The physical injuries from the brutal struggle healed in time, but the emotional toll was far greater. Susan took legal action against Michael's estate, winning a $1 million civil settlement. Though she never expected to see a dime of it, the victory was symbolic. She had taken back control from the man who sought to destroy her. Susan became an advocate for victims of domestic abuse and violent crime, speaking out about her experience to raise awareness. She worked alongside organizations dedicated to helping others escape dangerous relationships, hoping her story would serve as a warning and an inspiration. In the end, Susan Walters didn't just survive, she triumphed. Through sheer will and an unbreakable spirit, she turned a moment of horror into a lifetime of purpose. Her story remains a testament to resilience, proving that even in the face of unimaginable betrayal and violence, the will to live, and to fight, can overcome even the darkest of intentions. Susan Walters' story is one of unimaginable betrayal, but also of extraordinary resilience. She fought back against the unthinkable and lived to tell her story, not just for herself, but for those who may one day face danger from someone they once trusted. If you found this story compelling, consider subscribing for more true crime cases that reveal the darkest sides of human nature. Your support helps uncover more stories of survival, justice, and the hidden truths behind crimes that shook the world. Stay aware, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe.